Alright, the title of my presentation is The Misuse and Overuse of Antibiotics. When you or your child is sick, do you go to the doctor expecting them to write you a prescription for an antibiotic, and when they don't, you don't understand why and get frustrated or angry? Well, your doctor may actually be doing you a favor. I'm sure all of you have taken antibiotics at some point in your lives, and this topic relates to you in some way. I have learned about the use and abuse of antibiotics through a college health science class and through research. Today, I am going to talk to you about what exactly antibiotics do, how they are misused, and the repercussions of their misuse. First, let's talk about what an antibiotic is. According to dictionary.com, an antibiotic is a chemical substance produced by various microorganisms and fungus, having the capacity to inhibit the growth of or destroy bacteria and other microorganisms. Now that we know what an antibiotic is, let's talk about the two most common types of organisms that make people sick: bacteria and viruses. According to kidshealth.org, bacteria are single-celled living organisms. Most of them do not cause harm, like lactobacillus, which lives in our intestines and helps us digest food. However, there are some bacteria that do cause illness when they invade the human body. Antibiotics are proven to be effective against these types of bacteria. Viruses are non-living organisms that cannot exist on their own. They have to have a host in order to live. They are particles that contain genetic material wrapped in a protein coat. They only reproduce after they have invaded a living cell. The immune system can fight off some viruses before they make you sick, but other viruses, like colds, your body has to fight off, and they have to run their course in your body. Now that we know what antibiotics, bacteria, and viruses are, let's talk about 3 common ways that they are misused. Number 1. Many people go to the doctor when they have a cold and expect an antibiotic from their doctor. Antibiotics, however, do not help you get rid of a cold. The common cold is caused by a virus, and antibiotics inhibit the growth of bacteria, not viruses. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, you should not take antibiotics for a cold unless your symptoms do not get better within 10 to 14 days. This could be a sign of a sinus infection, allergies, or another medical problem. There are many ways to treat your cold without antibiotics. Some of these include getting plenty of rest, drinking lots of fluids, over-the-counter cold medicines, and many vitamins. Number 2, do not save antibiotics for the next time you get sick, or take antibiotics that have been lying around the house when you are sick. Doses for different age groups and even individual people can vary. If you are taking leftover antibiotics, you will most likely not have the proper amount and will be contributing to antibiotic resistance. According to intermountainhealthcare.org, if you have leftover or expired medication of any sort in your house, do not flush it down the toilet or throw it away in the trash. This medicine can dissolve into groundwater and end up in your water and end up being the water that you drink. It can also be found in the trash by pets, children, or even thieves that are going through your trash to look for pain medication or other things. In order to safely dispose of medication, check with your local police department for a drug collection site and drop them off there. Number 3. Some people get their antibiotics because they are necessary, but only take them until they feel better. The problem with this is that when you don't take a full sequence of antibiotics, you don't get rid of all of the bad bacteria. The bacteria left over have all mutated and become resistant to the antibiotic that you were taking. This can end up causing major problems down the road. Now that you know a few ways antibiotics are misused, you may be wondering what all the hype is about. You may wonder why antibiotic resistance is such a big deal. Can't they just make new antibiotics that do the same thing and kill all of those bad bacteria? Let's talk about what's going on with these new antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Wouldn't it be nice if researchers could easily come up with antibiotics that were harmless to the human body, but would kill all the bad bacteria, even if it was resistant to antibiotics? Unfortunately, there are many factors that go along with developing new medicines. It is getting harder and harder to find substances that will kill these antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and the new ways being found to kill them are harmful to the human body. Many of the new treatments also take much longer to treat patients for the infection, such as antibiotic-resistant strain of TB that requires 2 years of intense treatment. These new drugs are also harder to get out onto the market. They have to go through rigorous years of trials in order to become available to the public, and usually cost quite a bit to produce. Many drug companies are going away from the antibiotic business and going into producing other medications because of the cost. They are instead making medications such as high blood pressure medication, which are used for a prolonged period of time and by lots of people. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, some microorganisms have developed resistance to multiple drugs and are called multi-drug resistant. In some cases, microorganisms cannot be treated with any antibiotic due to their resistance. Many hospitals now are a dangerous place to stay due to the amounts of antibiotic-resistant bacteria that live there. One example of these dangerous bacteria is known as MRSA, or methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. According to MayoClinic.com, MRSA is a strain of staph bacteria that has become resistant to antibiotics commonly used to treat ordinary staph infections. Most infections from MRSA occur in people who have been in hospitals or other healthcare settings. When it occurs while in or after being in a healthcare setting, it is known as HA-MRSA, or healthcare-associated MRSA. These infections are usually associated with surgeries, intravenous tubing, or artificial joints. Another type of MRSA is known as CA-MRSA, or community-associated MRSA. This MRSA often develops as a painful skin boil and is spread through skin-to-skin contact. It is most common in groups like wrestlers, child care workers, and people who live in crowded conditions. Now that we know a little bit more about antibiotics, we know that we can prevent the superbug that will be resistant to all antibiotics. We want to make sure that we are only using antibiotics when absolutely necessary, and that we are using them as directed. Remember to never use old antibiotics or ones that you find at your house lying around. Dispose of all medications properly and never flush or throw them away. We have learned about what antibiotics, bacteria, and viruses are, a few ways that people misuse antibiotics, and what some of the repercussions are that come from misusing antibiotics. So make sure that you go out and only use antibiotics the way you're supposed to, so that we can help prevent the superbugs.